Hello, Fire Goddesses. Welcome to episode 69. In today's episode, I welcome back my monthly guest, Saskia Bergmans Smith. In this episode, we are talking about drama. And it may not be the drama that you typically think of when you hear the word drama. What we discuss today is the inner dramas, what goes on within ourselves, and what we can do about them. How can we navigate through them? It's a really interesting subject, if I say so myself. Saskia and I always have these wonderful discussions. So without further ado, I invite you to episode 69. Hello, Fire Goddesses. Welcome to the Reclaim Your Fire podcast. My name is Angela Noel, and I am a prosperity coach for the newly awakened or awake curious, driven overachiever, and overdoer. After running a successful acupuncture practice in Boston for 12 years, I decided to hang my hat by closing the practice and pursue what it is that I'm really meant to do in this world. And that is to serve humanity online on a global scale. Using my background in Chinese medicine, along with the brain science of habits, spirituality, and divine masculine and feminine energy balance, I am here to help you not just understand, but know how powerful you are and that you are the person who is responsible for having the finances, inner peace, radiant health, and energy, aka the fire, in your life that you've always desired. My intention with this podcast is to serve humanity, no matter what gender you identify as, to help bring out the divine feminine goddess in each and every one of you. As you probably are already aware, the world is changing and is begging for the goddess to come out in each and every one of you. So, Fire Goddesses, stay tuned. Hello, welcome back, Fire Goddesses. This is Angela Noel, your host for the Reclaim Your Fire podcast. So looking forward to another great episode with the famous, my regular guest, Saskia Bergmans Smith. Hi, Saskia. How are you?
Hello. I'm well. How are you?
Doing so well. Thank you. It's lovely to see you.
Yes.
And I meant to tell you, I love your hair today.
Oh, it's, just half down. Thank you.
Yeah, it looks really, really nice.
Yeah.
So I have to say, there's this part of me that when you suggested this topic, I was like, yes, because so many of us are drawn to this, right? And it's just part of our makeup and who we are as human beings. We love this, don't we?
Right. Media says drama sells. So media, everything we watch has a dramatic spin on it in some shape or form.
Yeah.
We're afraid of childbirth now because you never see a child being born that is smooth and easy because it doesn't sell. So our perception of childbirth is traumatic and women screaming. And that's not really what childbirth is and labor and delivery.
We're just going right in there. So in case you haven't realized yet, to the goddesses listening, we are talking about drama today. And there's so many different levels we can go to, but like what you just said, Saskia, I love how you said that drama sells. You know, especially, I mean, we're recording this in the middle of August when there's a lot going on in the world, in so many different ways. And I was just reading a post by somebody that I know who is a military wife, and she basically said if you really want to know what's going on, and this is not what we're talking about, but just as an example, okay, start talking to the men and women and their families in the military. Because they will tell you what's going on. The inflammation that you see on television is only a small piece of it, because that's what sells.
Right.
So anyway, yeah.
Right. And we will be talking about drama on the inner, but expanding upon the drama on the outer. I gave my girls permission. It was, normally I don't let them watch TV. The rule is after 4 o'clock, you can watch some TV. So it was 4 o'clock. They watched some, and I was like, I came in to check what it was, and it was this program that they really enjoy. And I'm like, no, not this one. Because you have been behaving like this. And I mimicked how some of the characters were talking on the program, and their jaws dropped, because that's not how I communicate with them. And it was just sass talk. And I'm like, and they just stopped in their tracks and looked at me, and I said, yes, and that is exactly how you are beginning to speak to me. So no more of this program, because you cannot differentiate what is appropriate and what is not, because you enjoy the aesthetics, the visual, the music, all of this program, but it's all drama filled and attitude. There's too much. And this isn't real life. But you are losing sight of that. Obviously I use less words because they're younger, but they were losing sight of that because they just dropped back into this episode.
And your daughters are how old?
6 and 8. So
they're young. That's just, it starts even younger than that, where they're, since when they're born, right? Their brains are like, they're watching everything, they're listening, they're paying attention, and they mimic. Right. But they heard me, which was like, woof. And that's the good thing about this age, is that they're learning discernment, but I can still reach them now, when they're 15, 16, 17, they'll roll their eyes and go, yeah, who knows what the response is going to be. Yeah. But this is really the time where I can still access them and plant these important seeds. So important. Where I have more attention. I think when they get older, I'll have less of their attention. Yeah. But the seeds are planted now of, can you witness the difference? And that's so wonderful that you were able to, it sounds like they've really heard you, and, especially that pattern interrupt where they got to see you, they got to see mom acting like the characters, like, oh, this is interesting, right? Mom never does this. And is that really how we're acting? Right. And it's not 24/7, but it's, little phrases that are weaving in to. And I remember doing that to my mother years ago. I mimicked one of the characters. There was a British series called EastEnders. You may have had it in the States, I don't know, but in England it was EastEnders. And they had London accents. And I mimicked a London accent. My mother was like, that's not you. Drop it. And I was just like, right, that's not me. It's like, I'm not a Londoner. That's not who I am. So, but I was trying it on, and that's what we do. We try them on. And either we adopt it or we don't. But every now and then we need someone else to call us out. And we also need to be able to call ourselves out. And that's really important. Yeah. To bear witness and have that inner integrity to say, that's not who you are or who you aspire to be. It's so true. Yeah. And, I want to just emphasize what you said, because yes, our loved ones, like my sister reminded me over the weekend, I spent time with family, and she basically called me out for being addicted to my phone. And I knew deep down, I knew she was reflecting something that I already knew within myself. Yeah. I know that using my phone less is something that I really want. Who I am right now with my phone is not who I truly am. And so, yes, while it's good to, we often hear we hear that from others, but like, I really like how you said, it's important to realize this, or at least create awareness about that, about ourselves, about these habits within ourselves.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and do you believe that most of the time we do know it, even if it's not like completely, we're not completely aware on a conscious level, but we might know on a subconscious level?
Yes. And what is key is reflection time, meditation, walking without earpods in our ears, time to let our subconscious roam. It's that creative outlet. Well, with the meditation, it's cultivating that still point so we can cultivate the observer quality within ourselves.
Yeah.
And get less drawn into the emotional drama within. And it's also having moments when we are completely unplugged, doing the dishes, going for a walk, hearing nature, to let that subconscious bubble up to the surface more so we can witness it. Because when we're constantly putting something in our ear, constantly receiving information from outside of us, we're not letting our own inner wisdom arise and inform us as to where we're truly at. And that's what is a common avoidance, because it can feel scary.
Yeah. When we're in silence, you mean it can be scary.
What is going to come up? Can I handle it?
Yes. Yeah.
And I really do believe in, we are only given what we can handle. So those times where I'm having a really challenging time, I do go back to that soft prayer within of, show me the tools, show me my resources, show me my courage and my strength so I can indeed move through this with grace and not too much pain and suffering, with as much ease as possible.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I feel like, just circling back to the word drama, when we're dealing with drama and when we're dealing with, the drama within ourselves, a lot of times people think, oh, it's going to be so hard. They project past experiences onto their current experience, and therefore assume that it's going to be hard, or it's going to be a certain way, or it's going to be unmanageable, or whatever, word we often put to difficult experiences. But I love how you said, allow this to be easy, because really difficulties or dramas, right?
Right.
Are only difficult because we're actually making a choice to make it difficult, to stay in that energy of drama.
Yeah.
To stay in that energy of rumination, of thinking the same thoughts over and over and over and over again. Like I was telling you before we hit record, I was in the shower this morning. And usually in the shower, that's when I come out and I start putting pen to paper and I start writing, because I get a lot of my creative downloads come. Because when you think about water and what water does for so many of us, people, I think that's why human beings love water so much, because water is 100% flow and doesn't hold itself back.
Right.
And just, it will go with the tides and it really goes with the flow. And anyway, I was not going with the flow of the shower this morning. I was in my head and had to move my attention like literally 100 times during the shower.
Right. 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 Yes. And I think the energies that are available to us now on this planet at this time are giving us the opportunity to move beyond these limiting beliefs that we have within ourselves that trigger each of us our internal dramas. I'm going through the very same thing, and I know we are not alone.
We are not alone. We are not alone. And if there's, you know, you mentioned the energy going on right now on the planet. I mean, that's for people who, you know, I believe that we all sense energy, whether it's conscious or not.
Right.
So even though people are like, oh, you know, people say they feel energy, I don't feel it. Well, it may not necessarily come as like something that's like palpable in your body or something that you really like. Some people, like, walk into a room and they can feel it. But I do believe that we as humans a lot of us don't give ourselves enough credit, because it's the same as when somebody's talking about you and you have this fleeting thought that comes in and says, oh, I think so and so is talking about me. But then oftentimes we just dismiss it and we say, oh no, I'm just being silly, right? Or I'm just being dramatic.
Right.
But in actuality, when these thoughts come in, that's an invitation to say, well, maybe I'm right. And maybe I need to trust myself more often.
And maybe even just send that person love, regardless.
Exactly.
Compassion. Yeah. I know that I have transformed relationships by stopping my internal drama when I think about them, or when I've become conscious of not only creating drama in my own mind, but then when I'm talking to a trusted friend or whomever, guess what now happened? You know, and realizing, whoa, what am I saying? Why am I doing this? Am I trying to validate my actions? Because all the same, this isn't very nice, because in order to validate my beliefs or my responses, I'm needing to vilify somebody else. And I don't actually need to do that. I can trust in my own actions. And it just turned it around onto me. Of like, how do I really want to perpetuate this difficult relationship that I'm going through? Or do I want to play my part in healing it? And they will have free will as to how they choose to continue to interact with me. But I've made conscious decisions in shifting it, and they have shifted. The way we have communicated and are communicating has shifted. And they had a willingness in that, obviously. And I had an upstairs neighbor who was a rather challenging person to have as an upstairs neighbor. When she felt the children were making too much noise, she would stomp the length and breadth of the apartment to make it known to me that they were being too noisy and they were just playing. And it was traumatic to me somewhat. I was newly divorced. I was just trying to find my feet again. But she was not a happy person, and and I know it. I know how convenient it is if someone else is there, and in my thinking, they are doing something inappropriate. So therefore I can channel my anger towards them, and it feels a good release to me. Right? Do you recognize that, goddesses? Do you recognize that these outlets of, well, they were rude to me, so therefore I'm validated to be rude back?
Yeah.
And it's really just giving ourselves an opportunity to release our untamed emotions. But another way that we can reclaim our power is to say, goodness, they must be having a hard day, blessings to them. But still creating those boundaries, energetic boundaries of, you still don't have a right to speak to me in this way. Either putting off that vibe and that energy, or actually saying it verbally to this other person of like, no, I'm afraid that was not appropriate response.
Yeah.
But me stopping my drama in relationship to the other person. Otherwise, we're condoning it. And then they're going to do it to the next person, and that person's going to do it to the next, because like, well, they did it to me, so I, it allows me to do it. And one of us needs to be the bigger person.
Yeah.
To break that chain. And it's about our own personal integrity and us being in authority with ourselves.
Yeah.
In shifting that.
Yeah. Yes. It's so fascinating, really, to see over the years how we have, as human beings, been taught like what's normal, right?
Yes.
So I can remember times in my life where I was in my own drama, right? Or somebody said something to me, or somebody cut me off in the road, and I had my responses or my reactions were on the whole spectrum, right? There were times where I was like, oh, bless them, like maybe they're taking their wife to the hospital to have a baby. And then there have been times where I've been really angry, using people on the road, for example, as an example. But I've had people before tell me, like, when I've chosen the higher road, those times when I've chosen the higher road, where people are like, wow, like, that person did something to you. You're handling this so well. And the thing is, goddesses, is that while it's normal, I think it's still normal, right, for people to be like, well, you lashed out on me, so I'm going to lash out on you. It doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't mean it's right, because, and I'll tell you why it's not right. And it's not, I don't really belong to a world where I feel like things are either right or they're wrong. But this is why it's not right specifically for me and for the people that I work with, because we're all trying to change our lives and be better human beings. And if you continue to go down the path of the inner drama, that revenge, the negative emotions, that is only going to offer more expansion into who you are being. So instead of, if you're somebody that says, all I want is freedom, all I want is joy, all I want is inner peace, all I want is to attract the funds, right? And you're not getting that. And you're noticing, even listening, maybe you're starting to notice and discover that, hey, I do these things, and it's okay. It's not our intention here to shame you or we're here to start a conversation so that more people can start to become aware of their patterns. But once who you choose to be is going to expand, and it's going to reflect in the people that you interact with. It's going to reflect with the people that you attract.
Yes.
If you have your own business, it's going to attract the types of people that come your way, whether you have a business or not. So everything, I think what Saskia and I are trying to really drive home is everything's a mirror. The whole universe we're just mirrors of each other 24/7 nonstop, aren't we?
Yeah. And, that can feel overwhelming, of like, whoa, I don't know where to start. But just take ownership of your inner responses. Start there. And you know what? Start with one person who's consistent in your life. Because they are here to trigger us. That's no way out of that. This is our contract, is how can we come to a place of forgiveness and love, or indifference. If you're in an abusive place, you're not, I'll just love them to death and I'll just deal. No, you leave, but you You come to a place of indifference. But it really is, where are we bound? Where are we continuing to perpetuate the lower frequencies?
Mm-hmm.
Where can we see our in to rise above and to change our interaction within that situation?
Mm. Beautifully stated. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, what I'm hearing too is personal responsibility.
Right.
Because really what this kind of drama that we're talking about, the inner drama of ourselves, is putting us in a state of victim mentality.
Right.
And when we don't take personal responsibility, I think that was our last conversation, or the conversation before, personal responsibility, we're basically saying that we're victims of our circumstances.
Right.
And we're only victims if we choose to be victims. We are so, I can't even tell you. And, you know, as a fellow human on this planet, I know nothing. You know, I know zero compared to what is possible for us.
Right. Right.
But what I do know is that it's 100% possible, 100% of the time, to have whatever it is and attract and manifest whatever it is that we want in life.
And just work with what is manageable right now in front of you. A dear friend is always reminding me, and I love it. It's like, Saskia, don't implement new rules with the kids if you know you cannot follow through. Because then we just end up sledgehammering ourselves and beating ourselves up. So what is it that we can take on now that is realistic? And that really is, you know, and Angela, what you were saying made me think of something too, of, you know, sometimes like, no, but I'm a warrior and I know how to fight. And it's like, there's a difference. What are we fighting for? And do we need to fight? Does it need to be a fighting energy?
Yeah.
And again, it's not about making the other person see our perspective or our point of view or it's where can we continue to draw it inwards to say, why am I perpetuating this? Why am I not feeling heard? And how can I hear myself? And I know that sounds a little cliche, but sit with that. Sit with that question and just continue to ask yourself, why am I needing to behave like this? You may not, and you don't need to receive the answer right away. But start to pose this question. One of my answers came up to me last night in bed, half asleep, half awake. And I just lay there, arms out, like in Shavasana, palms facing up. And even I didn't fully let myself wake up, but I was just like, illuminate my mind so I can release this. I don't want this old pattern anymore. Help me to release this. I'm tired of this. I see where I feel unworthy, and I want to be worthy of this change. I want to step into this new reality. I don't want to be caught up in this old paradigm anymore. Are you tired of it enough that you are ready to make change? And can you find your place of surrender so that you can see what change might look like? And it can come in, often it comes in really subtly. So can you allow yourself enough stillness to hear it? Because we think it's going to be a sledgehammer. But if I have to tell you, ladies, warriors, if it's a sledgehammer, then it's been talking to us for a long time and we haven't listened. And those sledgehammers hurt.
Amen. Amen.
Right? It's like, I don't want to do
Yeah, it starts as a whisper, right? Like a very subtle whisper through our intuition. And oftentimes, first of all, I have like all these notes and I'm like, okay, I could take the discussion here, 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 and here. Right. But what I'm hearing is, the way that we receive intel from ourselves is really, oftentimes it's not going to be like, like banners and different colors and fireworks. Right. It's not that way. It often is very, very subtle. It depends on how you receive messages. It depends on, I tend to receive messages in my dreams or when I see animals. But there's messages everywhere. It could come through as a, those thoughts that you get sometimes, and it almost feels like somebody's kind of gently whacking you over the head in a very loving way.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, that's a great idea. Or, and it just feels like there's energy behind it. There's vibration behind it. It just feels really good. And then you're like, and then our ego comes in, right? Our drama comes in and says, oh, that's silly. Those are the things, goddesses, to pay attention to. Those are the times to pay attention, because you know what? Especially now, and I'm guessing throughout history, there's always been something, but we are being, what this time that we're going through right now, what we're basically being asked to do from, the higher powers, however you want to call them, is to reclaim our sovereignty and our authority and our personal power, because we get all the information that we need. And for those of you that are out there like, oh, I'm not intuitive, or I don't know how to do this, I invite you to just listen to this episode or listen to any episode that Saskia and I do together, because we talk about this. We've talked about this several times now, that you just start with really, really small baby steps. Yeah. And it starts with our awareness and and noticing things. And if you're not perfect the first time, nobody's perfect. It's the game. It's the game of life. And it's not supposed to be perfect. We just mess up and then we start again. Mess up and we start again. Right. And those are the lessons.
Right. And if this title drama resonated with you, let this be your in. Witnessing inside. It's like, okay, let everything else go and just be aware. When do you get triggered? And when does that inner critic reel off and have this whole story of why you're right, or someone else is wrong, or I'm going to say this, and can you believe, whatever that wave comes up in you, start there. Mm-hmm. Start there with that and just say, why are you here? Why are you here? Why is this so important to me? And maybe it is just to say to this person, I don't feel heard by you. And I get really upset when you just keep talking over me. Maybe that's all that needs to be said. Mm-hmm. I've had to say that in one of my relationships. And I said it like 4 times. I said, you're talking over me. You're talking over. And I wasn't shouting. I just repeated it in as much of a neutral tone as I could muster, but just to say, you are talking over me. I was speaking. You are talking. And that at the time felt incredibly courageous. That was a lot for me to do at that time. Mm-hmm. Just to say, you just completely cut me off. and just to stop and let the chips lie where it may. But it was heard. And I've had to do it maybe one or twice again, but it's now, I began to upload that voice within me that wasn't raging, that wasn't cowardice, not cowardice, but that shied away and thought, well, their voice is louder than mine, or they're stronger than I am. Whichever end of the spectrum you sit on, or wherever end of the spectrum that you naturally reside, find your middle ground and recultivate, as Angela said, recultivate a new dialogue and start to own that new dialogue. And you'll be surprised how that transmutes the energy and begins to change.
Yeah. And, you know, also, I feel I'm hearing a lot of like boundary setting in what you just described, Saskia. And there's this, I was actually talking with my sister over the weekend, and she was telling me how she's been speaking to some of her girlfriends, and they're, you know, 30s, 40s, struggling with saying difficult things, having difficult conversations, setting boundaries. Because I think that the word boundary often elicits a feeling of, again, like that it's got to be hard, that we got to be like kind of hardcore or hard, or we're yelling, or we're losing our temper or getting angry. And no, boundary setting is actually one of the best, in my interpretation, one of the best ways to practice self-love.
Yes.
And if you're going to do this as a practice of self-love, then you probably don't want to lose your temper. You don't want to do it angrily. You want to do it in your power.
Yes.
You want to maintain a sense of calm and knowing, like, this is what I want. This is what is it acceptable? You've crossed this line. This is not acceptable to me. This is not tolerable to me.
Right.
I am not okay with it. However, whatever wording you want to use, but the key is that you want to keep it. It doesn't have to be like this thing.
Right. Right.
You know?
Right.
In fact,
it's done respectfully, out of respect for ourselves and for the other human being.
Yeah.
Even if you think that their intent is not nice, is more malicious, or whatever avenue we feel they may be coming from, still come at it respectfully, because they're still moving out of ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
And often it is ignorance, and it's from their own wounded place. And often there are some, the few, and I don't like using this word that often, but there are some evil people out there, but it really is the smallest amount of people. Most of the time, it's ignorance, it's coming from a place of being wounded. And it's triggering our own place of wound, which therefore interprets us, or us interpreting them as being bad people. But they're not.
They're just like a wounded 5-year-old.
Right.
You know, we're all, one of my, I've heard this a lot since, but the first time I really heard this was from one of my coaches, where she said, we're just like a bunch of little children, you know, with children, like 8-year-old or 7-year-old emotional IQs.
Right.
And that's all. And that is why hurt people. And until you heal that, until you heal those parts of yourself, those little traumas that we all have.
Yes.
That's going to only perpetuate. And it's not a matter of being a good or bad person. It's a matter of opportunities that we get presented with every single day that we're alive and breathing, to heal.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And when we can see it from that perspective, ouch, that hurt.
Mm-hmm.
You're here to help me heal. Oof, that just turned it around. You know, I called a girlfriend today and she's like, how are you doing? I said, I'm not good. And she allowed me just to have a bit of a wobbly, have a bit of a cry. And, at this point, it's, sometimes just 3 tears. It's not much, but it's honoring that rawness within.
Yeah.
And that allows it to move through. But when we hold on to it because we're afraid of what it might look like, it only bubbles up and creates more power within us.
Mm-hmm.
But we're actually more powerful than it. And when we unplug from that drama, and, sometimes it's like, but that's who I am. It's like, no, the drama is the ego. Yeah. And it, it does make life sometimes feel more exciting. I know that's the illusion, right? It's so often we see it in our children. I saw it in my family dynamics. When I visited, we can bond through our dramas because that's how we've known how to bond. But it's not allowing us to evolve to be the best person we can be.
Yeah.
It's keeping us bound in our smallness, and we are so much more than that.
And so many humans want freedom in their lives. I hear that a lot from people. Like, I just want to be, maybe they don't use the word freedom, but they use other words like you mentioned the word bound or boundless, or like, I feel like I'm, I'm living in a shell, or I'm not being authentic. However you feel that you're not free. And freedom lives in all of us and will show its face when we start to free. It's not a matter of being freed by somebody else, but it's a matter of being freed by ourselves.
Right.
We are our own mental prisons. So
start and also, with the baby steps, because it will, just what you say, Angela, it will continue. I continually see that lesson of like, no, my love, it's your journey. You can ask people to help you out, but no one's here to save you. This is for you to figure out, and you can just allow it.
Mm-hmm.
Put one foot in front of the other. If you look at the whole picture, you will, again, it depends on your constitution. What are your patterns? Do you freeze like a deer in headlights? Do you have a rage? Do you curl up into a ball, into depression? Whatever your traits are that are unique to you, when you see the big picture and you feel shell-shocked, keep putting one foot in front of the other. Go for a walk. Ask for guidance. Do less. And just do what's right in front of you.
I would like to quickly also just talk about asking for help, that topic, because it's come up a couple times in this conversation. And I feel like, especially in the spiritual community, in the self, the people who are on usually a journey of self-discovery and expansion, they often feel like they don't want to necessarily talk about things because then they're bringing more energy to that topic. And they don't want to invite that kind of energy in. And, here's the thing with talking, and this is coming from somebody who traditionally doesn't like to talk to begin with. And then through going through this journey, I'm like, I became really guarded with what I'm going to say to people and not say to people. And I still think that is a good idea. But I think it's a matter of finding those individuals in your life that can hold the container, so that it doesn't become this drama fest, like like the things that we tend to have when we're emoting, right? Or going through something, we tend to put ourselves again in this victim state. But it's finding people in your life that can hold a boundary and hold space literally for you. So like you were talking about how you called your friend and you just needed to shed 3 tears and it was done. And it's a matter of finding somebody who can support you, hold space, but not necessarily go down that road with you, or not necessarily go through the drama or encourage drama. That's what I meant to say. We can go down roads with each other, but the goal is to do it in a way where we're in integrity with who we want to be.
Right.
Our point B person.
Right. Right. And, you know, it's interesting you say that, because when I first moved to the States and I did my yoga training, because of the frequency that I was at, I had a certain group of friends, and it was small because I was new to the country. I was building my family in America. And they were on the same journey as I was. And I did crack up a couple of times of like, gosh, the person I really open my heart to the most, I have to pay to talk to. You know, it was my yoga teacher who was my yoga therapist. But that was a necessary process for me I needed someone ahead of me on the path to guide me in how to raise my energy and how to harness these tools and begin to embody the tools. And now that I have embodied the tools, I'll call her up once a year, or, you know, sometimes it's in 6 months, and then it's not until 2 years, or, you know, and now I've got those 1 or 2 key friends that I can call up, and like the friend this morning who could hold that space for me and just say, I'm so sorry. That's really painful. Mm-hmm. And just being heard and validated.
Yes.
And then feeling heard, and then saying, what about you? How are you? And then hearing her journey at this time. And it has been an evolution. So know that you may need a psychotherapist. You may need somebody else there to hold the space for you for a bit, to help you upgrade, upload, if those in your orbit right now are perpetuating your dramas and you're like, that I see the cycle and I'm not shifting out of it. You may need to invest in yourself with a monetary exchange in order to support that. And that's an interesting exchange too, because it's also, I am worthy $150, $200, whatever, whoever you resonate with. Maybe it's through insurance. Maybe you only impart $10 for your copay. Whatever it is also that. And that was a journey for me too, in honoring my money. My budget is a certain amount. However, I feel it is worthy enough for me to part with this money in this way in order for my own evolution. I am worth it. I'm worth it to spend this much money on myself. And I'm not being frivolous in spending whatever amount of money to improve my mental health. And that is a journey as well.
Oh yeah, we could definitely go on the money journey, couldn't we? And money.
Right.
I mean, so many people, right, struggle with money, and really money is a reflection of our inner consciousness. But we can maybe talk about that in another episode.
Right. Indeed.
But
Indeed.
I love talking about money, and, you know, especially in the healing arts, right? Acupuncturists, yoga teachers, Reiki practice, all the healing professionals, right? And even in that, you don't have to necessarily be in like a healing art. You don't necessarily have to be a healing artist. So many people struggle in this department because they're like, well, I can't spend that on me, right? But really what you're saying is that you're not worth it. And self-worth in my interpretation, is the foundation, right?
Right.
It's the foundation of everything. And anyway, if you're out listening and you're like, I really need to talk to somebody, I really need to see somebody, Saskia and I absolutely 100% support you in your journey of going to find a professional to talk to, because it's so important. And they're all my therapist friends right now are like insane busy.
Right.
They're very, very busy. And also, Saskia, are you taking on new clients? If you're hearing Saskia's voice and you're like, oh wow, I really want to know more, are you taking on new clients?
I am taking on new clients at this time, indeed. Yes. So, yeah, like as Angela said, we are here for you, and we are here to support you on your journey. And whenever we speak and whenever we send out our recordings, we sometimes get to hear it again, and we benefit too. We are constantly being reminded, even as we channel these words, even as we hear these words and say these words, we are also lovingly being reminded of there's always another layer. We're on this path to continue to evolve.
Absolutely.
And because we have been on this path for a while, we know the rewards. And you probably do too. And it's why we're here. It's why we're here. To come to know our sovereignty, to come to be at peace, to live in a space of contentment, and to release ourselves from the dramas that keep us small and keep us bound. And we're here to find the greatest expression of who we are.
And if you're listening to this and you're really, you're resonating with it, whether it's conscious or subconscious, but maybe you're hearing this episode and it's like, wow, like this message, for some reason, I keep hearing messages like this over and over and over again. That is something to pay attention to also, because humanity's evolving right now. And that is really, we are changing consciousness. Yeah. It's a really, I'm getting chills now. Okay. So for people that are like, what is going on? Why are things so effed up? It's because we're actually changing who we are. We're yes. becoming more of who we are. I had a guest about a month ago saying, we're going from Homo sapiens to Homo spiritus. We are becoming the conscious cosmic beings yes. that it's in our birthright to be. So and we're going through the growing pains of it. And it's been happening for a long time, but it's just building and building and building and building. So right now we are at this time, it's so amazing, where we can choose to go Homo spiritus, or we can choose to stay the same. But what I'm hearing from, my mentors and my guides and everything is that if you choose to stay the same, because humans, we're part of nature. We're like water. We're meant to flow, and we're meant to grow, and we're meant to evolve. Yes. So what happens when we stay stuck? Nothing really. We're miserable. So I invite you to really just listen to this episode with an open heart and open mind. Listen to it again. Reach out to Saskia if you need more help. Reach out to myself, whoever's voice you hear and you're like, I want more. We're just here to be like, we're channeling all of this stuff. Yeah. We go back to these episodes and we're like, oh my God, I said that. Like, oh my God, that was a really good one. We said that. So yeah. Reach out to us. We want to hear from you. So, and Saskia, anything else before we wrap this up?
No, just to be gentle with yourselves. And, go back to what is a simple step for me to take. And if it is, as we touched on, your witnessing of your own inner drama, try to break the cycle. Catch yourself when you're doing it and just say, there is another way.
Mm-hmm.
I live another way. I'm choosing to live in a different way.
Yes. Beautifully stated, Saskia. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
What an amazing conversation. So grateful for you.
Likewise. Thank you. Mm.
All right,
Thank you, goddesses.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening. This is a very, as you can probably already discover and tell, this is a very powerful episode. Go back and listen to it as many times as you'd like to. And until next time, be radiant, be powerfully authentic, and know that you can always be in your power and reclaim your power at any time. You can always start again. All right, until next time, take care.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Reclaim Your Fire podcast. If you have found value in this podcast, please share this podcast with those you care about. As you probably already know, in order for the world to change, we need to change. So spread the word by sharing this podcast or by leaving a review in iTunes. Until next time, Fire Goddess, be radiant, be fiery, and be powerfully authentic. Take care.